Hello, beloved. I'm going to read to you John 7:16 through 24. Jesus answered them and said, "My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it be of God or whether I speak of myself. He that speaketh of himself seeketh his own glory, but he that seeketh his glory that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. Did not Moses give you the law, and yet none of you keepeth the law? Why go ye about to kill me?" The people answered and said, "Thou hast a devil, who goeth about to kill thee." Jesus answered and said unto them, "I have done one work, and ye all marvel. Moses therefore gave unto you circumcision, not because it is of Moses, but of the fathers. And ye on the Sabbath day circumcise a man. If a man on the Sabbath day receive circumcision, that the law of Moses should not be broken, are ye angry at me because I have made a man every whit whole on the Sabbath day? Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." So let's do some righteous judgment, beloved. That's discerning correctly, and then giving grace and mercy, and we give the spirit of truth. Those are the things that God wanted. He wanted that rather than sacrifice. So in Genesis 22:17, we see something important. But I'm going to read, well, I'll read Genesis 22:17. Okay, and the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, "By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed, as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice." So obeying his voice is great, but he gave him the right to his seed. He said that, where is that? Shall be blessed because they obey his voice, and his seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. So we know that Jesus, when he died, was buried, and resurrected, he took the keys of death and hell. So he possesses the gates of his enemies. And we see gates in the Psalms of David. It says, "Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in." Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. So he can come in to us who believe. Now, a serpent, the son of perdition, Judas Iscariot, Jesus called son of perdition, who loved money and was thieving from the congregation, I think, according to what they said about the money that he was holding on to. And then he spied out Jesus for the Pharisees and Sadducees, who Jesus called serpents, and John the Baptist called the brood of vipers. And in doing this, Jesus said, "I chose 12 of you, and one of you is a devil." And then Satan entered into him, and Jesus said, "Okay, go do what you're going to do." So Satan went and then took that body, that vessel, took over, and went and did something, went and handed him over his whereabouts, where he would be. And he kissed him in the Olive Garden, whenever the Gethsemane, whenever Jesus was about ready to be crucified. And so you see the betrayal there. And so he was betrayed by his own, and someone that was fellowshipping and taking part in the ministry, the doctrines of Christ, listening to him and part of doing things for Christ. And the interesting part about it is he called him son of perdition, which means destruction. And then Satan entered in him. That's a vile man, according to Daniel, someone who has Satan in them. And this is very different than Peter, in that in Peter, Satan spoke through him, and Jesus said, Satan, get behind me, for you're an offense to me, for you come from man's perspective and not God's. But Peter loved Jesus, and Jesus loved Peter. So what happened there was this ability of the serpent to corrupt and influence man. And notice that Jesus said, you come from man's perspective and not God's. So man being corruptible and clearly influenced by the devil, not seeing things from God's perspective, it can be corruptible. And man has made corruptible man into the image of God rather than Christ, who is the perfect image and likeness of God in the world. And so with that, you see that Jesus takes the keys from the enemy, Satan, the devil, and death and hell. And he is above all of his enemies now in the kingdom of heaven at the right hand of God until the time of restitution comes. And that time is here. Right now, we're judging with him all things. And we're judging righteous judgment. And the enemy doesn't like this because we're crushing the head of the serpent. Jesus came to destroy the works of the devil. And that's what's happening, is the head of the serpent is being crushed. And God said through the prophet that the tongue of the Egyptian sea would be no more. Now, it also says in the book of Exodus that the Egyptians are men and not God, and their chariots flesh and not spirit. So when you're looking at the corruptible man, flesh, the works of the flesh is what they're doing. They're not doing the works of the spirit. But good news is even in the prophet, he said even some Egyptians would come in and be born again into the kingdom. They would come into the kingdom. You see every nation, tribe, and tongue in the book of Revelation of Jesus Christ that are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And then you see those who are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life, who continued on in darkness, who loved money more than God, loved money more than their neighbor, to covet and to thieve and to lie and deceive and do all manner of chaos, storm making, to trouble the person in order to control their minds. See, we're supposed to renew our mind to have the mind of Christ, and we're supposed to hold all of our thoughts captive. Because what did Peter do? He was speaking, the serpent, Satan, spoke through him because he wasn't taking his thoughts captive. And he had, that was early in the ministry of Jesus, where he was teaching them the ways of life and the Spirit, the way to live by the Spirit and not by the flesh, which the flesh is corruptible, clearly. And so with that, Jesus had talked about these wicked ones are contrary to all men. These are the serpents that their worm will die not, and they'll be tormented day and night forever and ever. These are the ones that inherit everlasting lake of fire. So God said, from the heart, the mouth speaketh, and the sword discerns the thoughts and intents of the heart. So we should too let the sword clean us up of any